Those who worship the Lord, worship in spirit and truth. Those who say that they know Him must walk as He walked. Those who worship the Lord, worship in spirit and truth. Those who say that they know Him must walk as He walked. He is the way and the truth, and in Him is the life. If we obey His word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in Him is the life. If we obey His word, then we walk in the light. If we say that we know Him, but we don't keep His word, then we walk in the darkness, and the truth's not in us. If we walk in the light, we will have fellowship sweet, and the blood of Jesus will cleanse us from sin. He is the way and the truth, and in Him is the life. If we obey His word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in Him is the life. If we obey His word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in Him is the life. If we obey His word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in Him is the life. If we obey His word, then we walk in the light.
Well, good morning, friends. How is everybody doing this morning? Hopefully you're up and doing just fine and dandy today. Here I am sitting in my little perch. Remember, we're on today and tomorrow. I'm going back to the 5 days a week just because it just seems to fit better for me, as I've tried it now for a few weeks of not broadcasting on the Friday. Yeah, I need a day off, but maybe I can do the broadcast and then go take some time. Just need to work the time in when I can work it in, but it just seems that these mornings would be far better spent at 6 o'clock with you than lying on my little bed, and because I don't sleep at that hour anyway. So anyway, I am delighted that we'll be on tomorrow. We'll finish the book of Proverbs tomorrow, and then I'll be on break. Then I'll be back on June 1st. And I'm not sure where we're going to go quite yet. I'll get that figured out during my time away. I do know that I am going to create an event that I will share both with the Veracity Chapel page as well as on my own personal page, and see if we can drum up some more activity among us and set a model. Maybe others can follow and join with us. Actually, I do kind of have some thoughts about where we might go. I think we're going to come back as we begin kind of a relaunch of daily discipleship. We're going to talk about the theme of what is a disciple? What does it mean to be a disciple, to live as a disciple? I think that's probably where we're going to go. It's going to be kind of topical in nature, but just considering what that means to us. And out of that, I'm hoping on Instagram and TikTok, maybe even to create some little 1 minute snippets of things that pertain to living as followers of Christ. So just so you know what's going on, reminder that this weekend is a men's breakfast at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. So encourage, is it 7 or 7:30? Someone will get me corrected here. There will be an email and a Facebook post reminder about that, but the men's breakfast. So, encourage your man perhaps to participate in a men's breakfast. They're doing breakfast sandwiches and some tasty looking ones at that, biscuits and croissants and like pancakes wrapped around eggs and sausage. Looks really, really tasty. So just that's what's happening on Saturday morning, the reminder. And Sunday morning, we're having Matthew Corey, who's a local young man who will be speaking, talking, going to be half interview and then half sermon. He's going to get interviewed talking about where they're going and what they're doing, he and his wife, Jenna. So I just want to encourage you that to not miss that, to be talking on the theme of church planting. On June the 5th, that Sunday morning, we're going to be talking about Pentecost, both the Old Testament background of Pentecost and the New Testament explosion that happened on Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, and kind of thinking about church multiplication, global church multiplication on that particular Sunday. So just some of what's coming at you. Some of you might say, hey, I'd want to be a part of multiplying a church. Fantastic. Let's not hold on to anything here. Let's, as long as we multiply, and we glorify Christ, that's what we need to be focused on and need to be doing. So if I can make it happen, I'm going to get through the text first, and then we'll come back. I have a whole bunch of pictures to share with you from Benny, who is in Ukraine. If I get the opportunity to get to those, I will do so. So Fran sharing another praise here. She said, spent time with Pat Higgins yesterday. Daughter-in-law Wendy is cancer-free. Continues in remission. That is a praise. And so we rejoice with Milton and Wendy and Pat and family for that fantastic news. Well, into the text we go. Today, there are 6, some say 6. I'm not sure there's 6 there, but there are absolutely, no doubt about it, 5 sets of 4 things that we're going to look at as we work our way through. I'm kind of going to package it that way to help us make sure we get through this passage today, because we need to do chapter 31 tomorrow, so we can be finished with the book of Proverbs before I go on my little siesta. Some would say that there are 6 things, one being 4 generations that are evil. Others would say that no, that's not what it is. I'm kind of among that crowd a little bit, but there are certainly 4 things that are insatiable, 4 things that are inscrutable, 4 things that are intolerable, and 4 things that are weak yet wise, and 4 things that are stately. So we're going to look at those 5 sets of 4, or the 6 sets of 4, just to kind of package those things together so we will see what they are. So let's get into the text, picking up in verse 11 through 14. Some feel this is a set of 4 things, 4 generations that are evil. I don't necessarily see 4 generations that are evil. You might find 4 evil things among an evil generation in this passage, if you look at it from that perspective. So verses 11 through 14, some people curse their father and do not thank their mother. They are pure in their own eyes, but they are filthy and unwashed. They look proudly around, casting disdainful glances, and they have teeth like swords and fangs like knives. They devour the poor from the earth and the needy from among humanity. So those 4 verses, perhaps considerations for 4 ways that an evil generation is evil. I mean, cursing father, not thanking their mother, not showing any gratitude for their parents, and always talking down about their parents, no matter how good their parents were to them. Always having demeaning things to say about the parents. Says that they're pure in their own eyes, but they're filthy and unwashed. You ever been around somebody like that? I've said this before. I was just thinking about this last night while I was cutting grass. I don't know why, but I was. The comment that I have made a number of times, that I think that self-righteousness smells worse than chicken manure. And I really do think that's true. Verse 12 says they are pure in their own eyes, but they're filthy and unwashed. I mean, there are Christians that go around acting all righteous, but yet they're really not all that righteous. Then there are those people who don't act righteous, but they don't see anything sinful in what they're doing. And certainly we see this in our current contemporary culture, where we won't even call it sin. The whole sexual liberty that people take, and they don't even call it a liberty. It's just a right. It's my body. It's I can do what I want, and with whom I want, and God doesn't care. In fact, even many in culture would even mention God. There is no God in their thinking. God is humanity in culture. So this group, this culture, this generation, verse 12, Proverbs 30, they are pure in their own eyes, but they're filthy and unwashed. They look proudly around and casting disdainful glances at other people. Now, I'm thinking about this from the health aspect. I've put some weight back on. I need to get things turned around here and get back to walking and things like that. And hopefully this vacation will be a time to begin to get some things turned back around again and get on top of that. But I'm around people sometimes that they judge you on, you don't exercise, you don't eat right, you don't blah, 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 blah. And yet they are consumed with themselves, consumed with their own bodies, consumed with their own food, consumed with their own exercise, and ne'er have time to give care to someone else because it messes up their schedule, it messes up their training, it messes up their foods. My daughter and I had a conversation about this not that long ago. We went on a hike a few weeks ago and talked about this very type of thing. And I mean, this is an area, it's not the only area, but it is certainly an area where some people, they look proudly around you. Their body is great. Their bodies look fantastic. I won't take that away from them, but their soul is lacking. And they'll look disdainfully at those of us that maybe aren't so slender ourselves, but who have a rich soul. Now, we have to be careful that we don't flip the script and have rich souls, but look down on those who take care of their bodies. But I don't know if you've ever been around that type of person who does that, or those people who, they're really, really fit, but there's no time for God in their lives. And they might even claim to be Christians. I would press on them and say, where's God in your life? So this generation, cursing father and mother, pure in their own eyes, look proudly around. Verse 14 says they have teeth like swords and fangs like knives. They devour the poor from the earth and the needy from humanity. I mean, they just castigate other people. The idea of having teeth like swords is just they just chew people up and spit them out. And devouring the poor, the idea is well, the poor have coming what they've got coming, and they're getting their just desserts. They're getting their just rewards, and because they're getting those things, what's the big deal? So they have, again, teeth like swords, fangs like knives. It really has to say with the words and the demeaning nature of what they may have to say about people. And I see Christians sometimes even devour the poor from the earth, the needy from humanity. If they just get a job, I mean, that's the comment that sometimes I'll hear Christians say. If they just get a job, well, you ever consider maybe they've got a job? Do you ever consider maybe they have 2 or 3 jobs and that they're just in a place that they're still not making enough? You know, to make. Sometimes you have to work a few jobs, and it's hard, and we have to make sure that we're not in that generation that looks down on others, that curses the previous generation. And sometimes you'll see that, you know, the Gen X, the Gen Y, the Gen Z, the millennials, the blah, 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 blah. That was a Steve-ism, not Steve Hopkins-ism, but I think every time I say that, I think of our friend Steve. But they do these things, and they just put others down left and right, a generation so self-absorbed. Verse 15 picks up and speaks about what is, in my estimation, the legitimate first set of 4. There are 5 sets of 4. If you take verses 11 through 14, there are 6 sets of 4. But if you take where it literally says there are 3 things that are never satisfied, no 4 that never say enough, verse 15, and then it lists in verse 16 what those things are. The grave is never satisfied. The grave always wants more people in it. People will continue to die. The barren womb is never satisfied, and that is certainly absolutely a true statement. I mean, if you are a woman and you're wanting, and there are women in our own ministry, our own church, that we just need to pray for barren women, that they would have the experience of Hannah in 1 Samuel 1 and 2, that you could read about her there, and how she prayed and prayed and prayed that God would give her a child, and God gave her Samuel, who became one of the greatest leaders, one of the greatest leaders that Israel ever knew. Next, the thirsty desert remains constantly thirsty. And then lastly, the blazing fire. The fire, it's hard to put out. And so those are some things that always cry for more. Blazing fire, once it's set ablaze, is always looking for more to burn. So 3 things that are never satisfied, no 4 that never say enough. These things are insatiable. I mean, could we add other things? What other things might you say are never satisfied? If you were to add to this list, what might you say? Here's some other things that are never satisfied as well. So, would you add to this list? What else isn't? Sometimes the belly. Sometimes the belly's never satisfied, or the taste buds. Sometimes the habit is to eat food like we're never going to see this food again. Well, I got to eat as much as I mean, we don't say that. We don't maybe think that in the front of our mind, but we eat like it's true, like I'm never going to get to have this food ever again. So I'm going to eat as much as I can. We don't need to. Sometimes the belly is never satisfied. I mean, you could think about what other things, if you were to add to the list that has been provided here for us, what things might you add to the list of things that Agur has spoken about here in these verses? He jumps back over in verse 17 to the parents. And he says this: the eye that mocks a father and despises a mother's instructions will be plucked out by ravens of the valley and eaten by vultures. I mean, just the graphic nature of some of what we read in the Proverbs or in the scriptures at times. But so it's a warning. It's a verse that is latent with warning. The eye that mocks a father and despises a mother's instruction will be plucked out by ravens of the valley. I mean, so in other words, it's a warning. Do not mock your father. Do not despise your mother's instructions. Don't mock. don't despise. Don't be that person that would have your eyes plucked out by vultures. We hit verse 18 and we pick up in another set of 3 things. And then he says, no, 4 that I don't understand. So here are things that are perhaps inscrutable, or 4 things that are beyond understanding. And here they are. 3 things that amaze me. No, 4 I don't understand. How an eagle glides through the sky. How a snake slithers on a rock, how a ship navigates the ocean, and how a man loves a woman. And most would say, here to the last one that was said. I mean, the nature of relationships between men and women is there's still somewhat of a mystery. At least we say there is, and there's a lot of jokes that are spoken about the nature of husband-wife relationships and how challenging they can be. So he speaks about these things. I mean, to watch an eagle glide through the sky. I mean, that can be a pretty amazing thing, just to watch an eagle. I mean, where we live, we have eagles from time to time, bald eagles actually, that live right near our house. Now, I haven't really seen them here this spring, but last year we saw them, and you could see them flying over the pond by our house, the Mill Stream Pond, and swoop down from time to time and maybe try to grab a fish. Sometimes they'll swoop down and try to grab a squirrel or a rabbit or something like that. I don't know if they've ever swooped down and tried to swoop down upon the caretaker of the cemetery. Don't know if that's ever happened, but it's quite amazing to watch those eagles flying about and just how majestic they are and how they glide. Now we know far more now than Agur would have known in his day because of modern science and understanding how things fly and all those types of things. But in his day, just to watch with utter amazement, and also how a snake slithers on the rock. I mean, it is quite interesting to watch a snake slither about. I mean, how does it move? We think of how our feet have to move to get where we're going, yet a snake just kind of slithers along as it does. It's just, how does it do that? You know, and another question that comes out of that is, did a snake always have to do that? You go back to the account of the fall in Genesis chapter 3, and there's some thought that maybe the snake walked upright like a pogo stick or had feet or something, because part of the curse was that the snake would always crawl upon the ground. So you have eagles and snakes, and Fran saying, watch an eagle glide overhead this weekend. They soar so effortlessly. I can't talk this morning. It's beautiful, and I agree. Majestic is the word I might use to watch an eagle fly. Absolutely, especially if there's some water and you can see the reflection down upon the water, or you see them reach down and pick up a fish or something. It's just pretty amazing. Pretty amazing to watch eagles. Pretty amazing to watch a snake slithering on a rock, or how a ship navigates the ocean. To think about, now again, we understand modern days buoyancy and mass and displacement and all those different things that are a part of sailing. But then to think about how a small little rudder can affect the stirring of a ship. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing to think that just that tiny rudder will steer a ship. A huge ship, tiny rudder. How does that work? Well, I mean, there's all kinds of lessons that we can take out of that in our own lives. So here's the things that amaze. 3 things that amaze me, he said in verse 18. Put that back up for you. 3 things that amaze me. No, 4 to understand. The eagle gliding through the sky, a snake slithering on a rock, a ship navigating the ocean, and then how a man loves a woman. There was a game. I never played the game. Maybe you've seen the game. Maybe you've played the game. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I mean, often. And because of the joke of it, we oftentimes will excuse ourselves in terms of our relationship with our spouse, and we shouldn't. We need to, as godly Christians, constantly be working at our relationship with our spouse. We just need to do that. I mean, it speaks in verse 19 of how a man loves a woman. Well, there's a story about a couple, and they get up, and the first thing in the morning, the man rolls over and looks at his wife and says, "I sure do love you." And he goes into the bathroom and shaves and showers and gets ready for the day, and comes out, and his wife is there, and he looks at her and goes, "Wow, I sure love you." And he gets dressed, and she goes downstairs and gets some breakfast for the two of them, and it comes down, and he thanks her for getting breakfast, and they have devotions together and maybe read a little bit of the paper together or look at their phones and the news and talk a little bit. And he looks across the table and takes her by the hand and says, "Thanks for breakfast. I sure do love you." And he gets up and brushes his teeth and gets his things gathered up to go out the door. And as he goes out the door, he gives her a kiss and says to her, I love you. I'll miss you today. And heads on out to work. Partway through the day, it's lunchtime. He's eating his lunch and gives her a call. Just, "How's your day going? I just want to call and tell you that I love you." Comes home the end of the day and after his day of work, and she meets him at the door, and he gives her another kiss and tells her how he missed her, and whispers just, "I love you," into her ear. And they have dinner together, and he thanks her for dinner, and they do dishes together, and he kind of swats her onto derriere and says, "I love you," and that kind of playfulness. And then they watch a little TV together and sitting on the couch beside each other, kind of snuggled up, and he says, "I love you." And they get to the end of the day, and they crawl into bed, and she rolls over and looks at him, and you know what she asks? "Do you love me?" The point of that story is you just cannot communicate enough, and to figure out the languages of love that your spouse has, and then to try to speak those languages. Sometimes it's in gifts. Sometimes it's in service. Sometimes it's in spending time together. Sometimes it's in words. Sometimes it's taking note of them, personal attention that, "Oh, you did your hair differently today." One time I shaved off the facial hair. I probably only had a goatee, and I'd shaved it off. And my wife said to me, "You shave your beard off?" And I said, "Yeah, about a week ago." And she just hadn't noticed I'd shaved off my beard. That wasn't a strong suit. And yet, oftentimes a woman will get her hair done, and the man won't even comment about it. Men, and we just need to be wise, and we need to be wise with each other, wives with husbands, husbands and wives, learning about each other, knowing each other, so that we can appropriately love each other and fulfill each other, and to figure out, what does your spouse need to be fulfilled, and what is your role in fulfilling that for your spouse. So there are three things he said in verse 18 that amaze me. No, 4, I don't understand how an eagle glides through the sky, how a snake slithers on a rock, how a ship navigates the ocean. And then he puts perhaps what might be the most difficult one at the end, how a man loves a woman. Now, interestingly, when you look at verse 17, it came at the end of a set of 4 things. The eye that mocks a father and despises a mother's instructions will be plucked out. And then down at verse 20, it kind of does the same thing, follows the same pattern. It talks about an adulterous woman consumes a man and wipes her mouth and says, "What's wrong with that?" And basically saying, what's wrong with me having this fling with this person that isn't my husband? And just says, there's no problem. And that's exactly where culture is today. It's exactly what culture says today, and yet God says all kinds of things about what's wrong with that, shouldn't be. Verse 21 picks up with another set And here they are. There are three things that make the earth tremble. No, four that it cannot endure. A slave who becomes king, an overbearing fool who prospers, a bitter woman who finally gets a husband, and a servant girl who supplants her mistress. Now, I'm going to go into the Message to see how Peterson renders this. Sorry, you're going to have to watch this on the screen. Here it says, there are three things. Three things are too much for even the earth to bear. Yes, four things shake its foundations. When a janitor becomes the boss, when a fool gets rich, when a whore is voted woman of the year, and when a girlfriend replaces a faithful wife. I think that the Message really does bring real clarity into this for us. Janitor becomes boss. Now, the janitor, I mean, I think it's possible that you could be a janitor that becomes a boss, or you could become a just an ordinary person. Sometimes I think billionaires should not be allowed to be presidents, or even millionaires, maybe. I don't know. That might be small thinking on my part, but what about ordinary common sense kind of people becoming the president? Because it seems like when that type of money gets there, they lose all sense of touch with reality. I'm sorry, it's just my opinion. With some of the mega rich, not all, but some, and you see that them becoming uber rich. And it's funny. I was watching a piece about a New York senator, without naming names, who was just a common, ordinary person, but now it's all about the red carpet and all about going to the big parties. It's like, okay, you seem like you said one thing, but now you're doing a complete opposite thing. Why not simplify your life and not have to be on the red carpet with all the elite people that you always tear down? Anyway, these things are hard to bear. These things shake the foundations of the earth. Janitor becomes boss. In other words, somebody becomes boss that really doesn't understand how things work. When a fool gets rich, you watch somebody that they win the lottery. There was a man in our town in Venango, Pennsylvania, that won the lottery, and he was the town drunk. Yet he won the lottery and was getting $4,000 a week for his life, and still continued to sleep in his little store and on his little bed. And I don't know what he ever did with all that money. Don't know. He died, but don't know what ever happened to the money. Never heard. It also speaks, verse 23, and a whore is voted woman of the year. And how much do we see that in the news, where these people who live these lives that are so opposite and contrary to the ways of God get woman of the year? I mean, again, I was referencing somebody from Congress that was on the cover of Time or Newsweek is a couple of years ago, was this forthcoming, great, wonderful person, and yet really haven't accomplished a lot. And we look and go, why are they? It'd be like, some of the Hollywood people, you go, why are they the woman of the year? What have they done? 1 year's Mother Teresa, the next year is somebody who's taking their clothes off in public on stage in front of everybody. Just makes no sense. And then it says when a girlfriend replaces a wife. I mean, we will turn our heads and go, what's up with that? That ought not to be that type of way. So another set of four given there. We will go down in the text here and look at verse 24, where it continues on with the four. There are four things on earth that are small but unusually wise. Ants, they aren't that strong, but they store up food all summer. I mean, we can learn lessons from the ants and how they store up food all year. So ants aren't that strong. They store up food. I'm seeing a comment there. I want to come back and someone shared a different perspective that I appreciate. And I think there's something to that as well. Hyraxes, they aren't powerful, but they make their homes among the rocks. Locusts, they have no king, but they march in formation. And lizards, they're easy to catch, but they are found even in kings' palaces. So, I mean, they're unusually wise. Ants are wise. They store up food in the summer. Hyraxes aren't powerful, but they make their home among the rocks so that they cannot be easily captured. Locusts don't have a ruler, but they march in formation. And lizards, they're easy to catch, but they are found even in kings' palaces. So another set of three things that are small, unusually wise, and what lessons can we learn? I mean, lessons about stocking up for ourselves, lessons about maybe taking some protection for ourselves, a lesson about how to work together with others, and then, might not be easy to catch. And I'm trying to think of just what the application would be about the lizards, but they are found even in king's palaces. Now somebody shares a little bit different perspective when I was saying about the billionaires, but a billionaire who becomes president probably cannot be bought. It's true, and I think there's something to them. Suspicious, a poor man who becomes president, then is a millionaire. Yeah, I mean, we've seen some people become presidents who are, a couple presidents ago, that person wasn't a millionaire. Now he's a multimillionaire, and billionaire probably cannot be bought. I mean, that's the problem with politics today is, can people be bought? I mean, that's a question, and can an ordinary person, who is a relatively righteous person, get into politics and maintain their integrity? That is a question that is there. So, but the other side of it is sometimes billionaires are out of touch. The two ends of the spectrum, sometimes billionaires are out of touch. You look at some of these Hollywood elite, just so out of touch with some reality for the everyday, ordinary folks. But then also the other side is the simpleton might not understand how things work. I mean, that's the other side of the equation. And a simpleton that has no money, that starts with very little, just might not understand how things work and can make a mess that way too. And I don't know if it's because, we don't, just because of the nature of the work environment, the pay environment of what I do, whether I have a hard heart toward billionaires. There are some who do a lot of good. Elon Musk seems to be somebody that's a little bit more in touch. Seems to be. I don't know. Seems to be, but then you see some that are just they just don't get it. It's just like what we watched. We talked about this a few days ago. Some of this Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial taking place in Fairfax County, Virginia. And it's kind of a mockery of the justice system, if you ask me. If I were the judge and I saw some of the video of some of the stuff taking place in my courtroom, I'd say, enough, done, you're all locked up. That might be more than they can do, but I just don't get how this judge puts up with some of the antics that have been taking place in the courtroom. Anyway, all these things, coming back around into the text and what it had to say, let me cut us back over there. Learning lessons from small but unusually wise creatures. And then down in verse 29, this is the final set. There were 5 sets of 4, perhaps 6, but definitely there were 5 sets where it says these very words. There are 3 things. Then it says no 4. You will find that phrase repeated 5 times in this proverb. There are 3 things that walk with stately stride, no 4 that strut about. The lion, who's the king of the animals, who won't turn aside for anything. The strutting rooster, the male goat, and a king as he leads his army. The lion, the king of animals, who will not turn aside. Just continues marching right on, is not going to be turned aside for any reason. So the king, the lion, the king of the jungle, a strutting rooster. I mean, roosters can't help it. That's the only way they can walk, I think. I mean, they don't have like arms like we do. They got wings, but they're usually kind of tucked into their side. They kind of have to strut about. It's the only way that chickens can walk. I can't imagine. I guess I need to go spend time observing chickens and see how they walk. I think they have to strut. I think that's the only way. And it talks about the male goat. The male goat must also be one that won't turn aside. A male goat has a stately walk. Some dogs, I mean, there could be other things that we might come up with and say, well, there are other things that kind of have this stately stride. Then he talks about the king as he leads his army, that a good king will be, or a good leader right out front leading the charge. So 3 things that walk with a stately stride, no 4 that strut about. And in this case, it doesn't make strutting about necessarily a bad thing. We might read the phrase to strut about and think, oh, that's a negative. No, I don't think it means it negatively. I think it means it in a positive way that they strut about it. It's like they go about with confidence. And for you and I to learn how we can go around in confidence as well. Verse 32 and 33, we're about to end this proverb. If you've been a fool by being proud or plotting evil, cover your mouth in shame. Just don't continue being a fool. Stop being a fool. Stop it right now. Don't be a fool by being proud or plotting evil. Just stop talking about it. Don't talk about the evil that you plotted. Don't talk about the foolish things that you did. Just keep quiet and don't be a fool. Just don't say it. And then it ends with this note. As the beating of cream yields butter and striking the nose causes bleeding, so stirring up anger causes quarrels. If you want to have butter, you beat the cream until it becomes butter. You take the cream off the top and just beat it, and it becomes butter. Punching somebody in the nose is probably going to make them have a nosebleed. I've never had a nosebleed in my life, ever. And then also stirring up anger causes quarrels. So, I mean, some people get off on stirring up anger. Some people just like to do it. I don't know why they like to do it, but they just do. They like to create strife, and it's just not a good thing. So don't be one who stirs up anger and causes quarrels. Last few comments over on the in the comments, Don said, I'm concerned with a wealthy man who can buy his or her way into new legislation that they benefit from. I mean, yeah, so I mean, there's this mistrust on both sides. Those who, let's not get into a quarreling here among ourselves. Either one can be corrupt. The poor can be corrupt, and the uber wealthy can be corrupt. And guess what? Anybody in between can be corrupt. I mean, you can have a person that's just kind of a fairly well-to-do middle-class citizen who becomes corrupt in government and in politics. And, money is such a huge factor in all of it. And, so much so that's the news piece sometimes. Well, so-and-so has created a war chest of, so many millions of dollars and for their campaign. Now everybody else needs to do it. So Nell says, I've given a bloody nose and I am not proud of it. Well, Nell, I'm not going to get into a tangle with you. No, I am not, because I don't want to get a bloody nose. Just want to stay away from it as much as I possibly can. Never had one, though. Played football, wrestled, grew up on a dairy farm, got smacked in the nose with cowtails. Never had a bloody nose. Not to say it couldn't happen now. It certainly could. No doubt about it, but I don't think that it will. but we don't know. Anyway, we have completed Proverbs chapter 30. There have been some insights. There have been some wrestling here about wealth and poorness, both, and both. Either one can be problematic. And again, I don't want to see us quarrel over this. You can, if a person can maintain their sensibility as a poor man, or if they can maintain their sensibility as an uber rich person. Or anything in between, to maintain our sensibility and understand that we're all going to be held accountable to God, that is going to make a big difference, I think, in keeping our sensibilities. I had said I would share some pictures with you. Let me see if I can get into those, and it won't be a neat, tidy little sharing that I'm going to do with you, but I will share what I can, so you can see some of what is happening over in Ukraine. I'll do my best here, folks. Okay, so let me see what I'm looking at here. I'll cut over this direction, see what we can see. There we go. I mean, they're seeing this, just riding down the streets where they're going, and here we see these are older pictures. They go newer. We see them carrying and unloading things. What have I done here? Well, tanks. There. We'll go this direction. Just driving down the streets, and there's tanks, and now we have people who are I'm stuck in this loop here. Sorry about this. I didn't download these things. Pictures of small children. You got to go the other way. Moms, people trying to grab some things to help them in their situations. Again, I mean, to be reminded, you got women, you've got children, and this is still in Ukraine. People who are still there. Apparently, they had a van that ran out of gas, and they needed to siphon some gas out for a different van, and figuring out how to get around the problems. Here you see some signage there about the times from 10 to 1300, 10 to 1, that would be, that people can come and get supplies, get food, get help. Just again, pictures of people serving people. There we go, trying to siphon out some gas. Another one of the pastors there. I think these are some of the pastors here, and trying to figure out how to get gas and all those things. So let me close that one out, and I'll go down a little bit further. And I don't know if we'll be able to hear the video. There's the line of people who are lined up to get supplies. Pastor Benny sharing that with us so we can see just what's going on. Trying to take you a little bit to the action there. Another video. I'll just play another video. people getting in line, needing to get supplies. So that's just a few pictures I thought I would share with you from Pastor Benny, a few videos. That's today. He just sent me those right before the broadcast this morning. So I wanted to share them with you and encourage us to continue to pray for all of them as they're doing what they're doing over there, and sharing as they're sharing, and to remember to pray for our pastor Benny, who is over there. He's from Romania but is up in Ukraine. Just to remember to pray for him and for all the people that are there, and all the food that's being delivered, and medical supplies, and even overcoming the obstacles of not being able to get gas, and all of those things. Shave cream, that's important. Deodorant, that is really important. But just to remember to pray for our friends. Lord, we do pray for our friends, for our brothers and sisters in Ukraine who are serving people, that you would continue to strengthen them, encourage them, protect them, use them to bring aid and to bring ministry and to bring the gospel to people who so desperately need to have the gospel there in Ukraine. Lord, use them, protect them, provide for them, and cause many to find hope in Christ through their ministry. We lift them to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, friends, that's a wrap for today. I want to encourage you to have just a fantastic day. We will see you again tomorrow.